What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is a little bit late. Don't know what happened on Thursday night, but for some reason, the only channel that went out for the last half of this episode was NBC. Like, it cut off during the commercial break. I'm just like, what's going on? I check all the other channels, everything else is working fine, NBC was not. I don't know what happened. If anybody happens to know, let me know down in the comments what happened. So, yeah, I didn't get to see all of it Thursday night. Yesterday I was really busy, so today, Saturday morning, I'm finally able to watch the rest of the episode. This is the Blacklist. It is back. It's awesome. I was super excited for it. And, yeah, it was good. It's the first episode, Esteban. And although most of it was good, there were a few things that I don't really understand or didn't really like. But because, there are only a few things, I'm going to talk about that first. First one, and I think most people will probably agree with me on this, is Samar's reaction to all of this. I understand, everybody on the team, Cooper even says, I'm probably the one hurt most of all by the fact that she is actually still alive. The fact that she faked her death and didn't even tell us. But Samar is taking it a little too far. It's not like she's never lied to anybody else before. She's helped Red a couple times without anybody else knowing. One time she actually helped Liz and Red, despite the fact that she and Wrestler were sleeping together at the time. So she's done some really shady stuff before too. But yet for some reason Liz does this, and now she's like, I'm not going to help her. It's almost like watching a little kid that got offended by something. It's like, I'm going to pout and I'm not going to help you now. I hate cats. I do. They are inconsiderate. Keep making noise. So anyway, long story short, as far as Samar goes, I feel like she's being very childish right now. I understand being hurt by the fact that Liz lied to you, the fact that she faked her death, didn't tell you, but to not help her despite the fact that her and her husband and her kids' lives are in danger, I feel like that should be enough to put aside your differences. Everybody else on the team has the exact same reaction. They're like, you know what? Yeah, she lied to us. Yeah, she faked her death. Yeah, it sucks. But her life, her baby's life, and her husband's life, all on the line here. We need to do our jobs. We need to protect them. And someone's just like, nope, not gonna do it. It's just like, God, why? Why? The show is not... There have only been a few times with Wrestler in the past where I've been like, he's acting out of character. This is the first time Samar's ever acted out of character, in my opinion. And they, honestly, with Wrestler, his out-of-character moments weren't even that out of character. It was just like, I felt like he was taking it a bit too far with his whole patriotic persona, whereas, with Samara, it's like, why wouldn't she help her? It feels like her and Liz, she connects with Liz, she understands her on some... So, I don't understand her motivations. Maybe they'll explain it a bit better, why she's so extremely over the top with her hatred for what happened with Liz. But that was frustrating. The other thing that I didn't really get was Mr. Kaplan, like hers, not just what she did. I understand why she did that, but everything in this episode with her was a bit strange to me. There was, first of all, the fact that Red was just like bringing her along through all of this. I feel like that kind of goes against his character a little bit. Like, she betrayed you, I guess. Well, now that I think about it, I guess it would make a bit of sense because, he'd want to keep her close so she doesn't do anything to try to trick him again. Okay, I could understand that. But the thing that really bothers me about her is that it feels like she doesn't trust Red. And, it makes sense from Liz's point of view because to Liz, up until, like, a year ago, something like that, Red was just... He was just a criminal. He was just the FBI's most wanted man. That's all he was to her. Now all of a sudden, obviously them being on the run has made them closer. But it makes sense for her to want to fake her death to get away from Red. What doesn't make sense to me is Mr. Kaplan completely betraying Red, and then despite all of this, saying if you do get her back, if you do get her and her baby back, you have to let her go. You can't be a part of her life anymore. It's like I feel like that's very ballsy coming from you, and not that obviously she is a very ballsy woman, but for her to just be all, it's almost like she's trying to control Red at this point. It's almost like she's trying to. It feels very. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. Unnecessary, I guess, is one way to put it, because Red's gonna do what he's gonna do. That's just who he is. He's not gonna listen to anybody, especially not the woman who cleans up his messes. She's not. Even though she's very important to him, he's not going to change his ways and stop protecting Liz just because she says so. That's just. It felt very weird. It felt like there was unneeded dialogue there, where it should just be, what, I helped her do this because I felt like it was right for both of you. And at this point now, it's like you've made a mistake. Obviously, all of this led to her getting captured by Kirk and Tom nearly dying in the process. All of this happened because you went against Red. That's what I see anyway. And it's not what's being said. In her mind, she still feels like she was right in all this. I'm like, well, even if you were partly right in your reasoning, your execution was very poor. And now she's in trouble because of you. So anyway, those are my two problems. The rest of it was really exciting, really action-packed. Good way to start off the fourth season, I thought. You've got, I think they're in Cuba. Yes. They were in Cuba. They were searching for Alexander Kirk and where he was staying. So Esteban, the title of this episode, he was the guy that apparently was working with the CIA. And I guess if I had another problem with this one, it's a problem that I've had before, in that this Panabaker lady, the lady from the CIA or whoever she is, I can't remember exactly who she is to the task force, but it almost feels like last season she was kind of set up as the good guy in the government that they could go to for help. Now she all of a sudden feels like, oh no, she's just as corrupt as the rest of the government out there. Working with this guy who is clearly not a good guy. Like, he is evil in what he does. He's got slaves locked up, all that stuff. I was just like, really? Like, you're supporting this guy. You're saying we need to make sure he doesn't get captured. The fact that Wrestler got him captured, I thought was perfect. The way it all worked out, I thought it was perfect. And she's sitting there like in denial, like, oh no, we couldn't have done. Why did you do this? And I'm like, lady, get a clue. This guy was clearly evil, and you're supporting him right now. I thought you were supposed to be kind of a good person. You shouldn't be standing up for stuff like this. So that was another thing. But anyway, Red does go to Esteban for help because apparently he knows something about where Kirk is staying and the guy that is helping him while he's in Cuba. So you've got Red going after him. Meanwhile, Tom has been captured with Agnes, and one of Kirk's henchmen is bringing him back. Well, two of Kirk's henchmen are bringing him back, and Tom manages to find his way away, but they end up taking Agnes back to the house. Tom works with a ROM to sort of give information about Agnes to Red. Red arrives just before, or just after Liz is being taken away in an airplane, but they get there just in time to stop the henchman with Agnes. Mr. Kaplan gets Agnes back, but for some reason the henchmen escape. Like, how did that happen? I wish I could have seen that. But that was just setting up for they're driving away with Agnes, and the henchmen show up and T-bone them. And then the guy takes Agnes away from Mr. Kaplan, and cut to black. So you've got all this stuff going on, and obviously there are a lot of details in there that I left out, but that is kind of the general overview. You've got Red wants to get Liz and Agnes back. Tom is captured at the moment. And then you've got the task force that, wrestlers in Cuba helping out Red, and, ends up capturing Esteban, but the rest of the task force is just kind of there helping over the phone. And then, all of that stuff goes down is mainly with Red and Mr. Kaplan and Dembe. So it's a very simple episode as far as execution. There isn't like a bunch of complicated stories that you've got to get going. They are setting up some stories for later on in the season, but for right now, it's a very simple story. And I think that's very important because you look at most of the other shows that are starting right now, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Gotham, NCIS, all of these shows are trying to set up so many stories for the rest of the season. And some of them did it well, some of them, well, it felt cluttered. But this show just stuck to the storyline. They're just like, you know what, we're not going to try to set up a ton of stories. Obviously, they're kind of setting up that this season may be about Red trying to get Liz back from Alexander Kirk, and probably trying to get Agnes back as well. Tom trying to get her back too. The task force probably working with Red to try to help him get Liz back. That kind of feels like what this fourth season is going to be about. And so they just sort of set that up. They set up the chase, all of the stuff going on, kind of the backstory between Kirk and Red. Like they set up all of that. They set up all of the emotion. They didn't have to set up a ton of stories that are going to happen later on in the season. Like that's... I think that's very, very good, and the way they did it is very clever. They didn't have to make it this complex story that's just like, oh, what's happening now? What's happening now? Let's go here. Let's go here. It's just one flowing story. You've got Tom, you've got Red and the task force, and that's about it. I guess the only problem that I do have with the story itself is that there was one scene that felt kind of unnecessary. Like Tom kicking out the headlight and flagging down the policeman just for the policeman to die. I understand that. Tom is a survivalist. He's doing everything he can to survive. That makes sense. The one that doesn't make sense to me, though, is Liz trying to escape just to fail. Because, like, for Tom makes sense. He's a survivalist. That's what he was trained to do. Everything that he does is trying to survive. That makes sense from him. For Liz, even though it's to protect her baby, I still don't think she would go to such lengths and then not escape. Like at the very least, she'd run away or hide herself somewhere. All she did was just run out and then, tried to trick the woman and then fought the one for a little bit, and then the guy shows up with a gun and now she's done. She's beaten. And I don't even think it really led to anything either. Like, I guess Kirk at that point decided that she was going to be separated from Agnes. I think that wasn't very clear, but that was the only thing that I felt like it was kind of unnecessary. It felt like you could have just had Kirk decide, separate her and the baby or something like that. I guess that was the purpose, to separate them, but it didn't come off very well. I'd say that's the only thing in the story element that didn't come off as well as the rest of the story. But it was still good. It was still really enjoyable. Alexander Kirk himself, and I think his real name is actually Constantine, he is a good villain for this one. He's very, very confident in himself right now. I would like to see, there was a scene when Liz does make her escape initially where he kind of freaks out a little bit. I would love to see a bit more of that because, as much as I do enjoy having a confident villain who's just very sure of himself and doesn't really get affected by much, seeing men like that end up being affected and like start freaking out a little bit, I think that is the fun part of it. So hopefully as Red starts to sort of chip away at his plan and start to form a plan of his own, I feel like that's going to be a very interesting battle to see how they contest each other and how they sort of, okay, Constantine has made his move, now it's time for Red to make his move. Like, what's the next plan? Where's he going next? What's the plan for when he gets there? Very, very interesting setup for this season. I really do enjoy what they've got going, and the characters so far are really, really hitting points except for Samar. I mean, that's the only one that I think acted out of character in this episode. Everybody else I thought was spot on. And it's got a great setup for this season. I think I've said that like 5 times now. I don't care. It is a very, very good setup for the rest of the season. And it's a simple premise. They didn't have to do too much for it. Didn't have to overcomplicate it. It's just, we need to get Liz and Agnes back. That's all it is. So, those are my thoughts on this episode. I'm excited for the rest of the season. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you liked and didn't like about this episode. We can talk about it and discuss it. Leave a like and subscribe for future Blacklist reviews. I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.